What if the biggest sign you've been waiting for is happening right now, and you're about to miss it? Sometimes, the most life-changing decisions are made in complete silence. No messages, no confession, no dramatic moment. Just a quiet shift deep within the human mind. And once that inner decision is made, there is no turning back. Today, we'll uncover the hidden psychological signs that reveal when someone has truly chosen you, and why ignoring them could mean overlooking something extraordinary. Long before someone says, "I love you," or admits what they truly feel, a much quieter process has already begun beneath the surface. The conscious mind likes to believe it is in control, carefully weighing options and making logical decisions. Yet the deeper layers of the psyche often move first, shaping emotions before the conscious self can explain them. This is why people are sometimes surprised by the strength of their own feelings. They convince themselves they are simply curious about someone, only to realize much later that their heart had already made a decision long before their mind caught up. This hidden process is difficult to recognize because it rarely announces itself with dramatic emotion. Instead, it reveals itself through subtle changes. A person begins thinking about someone unexpectedly during ordinary moments. They compare new experiences to memories involving that person without realizing it. Small details, a familiar song, a place once visited, even a certain scent, suddenly carry emotional significance. These are not random events, but reflections of an unconscious attachment quietly taking root. Many people resist this inner movement because it challenges the identity they have carefully built. They may tell themselves they are too busy for a relationship, too independent to need anyone, or too cautious after past disappointments. Yet the unconscious is not persuaded by these arguments. It continues drawing attention toward what it recognizes as meaningful. This inner conflict often explains why someone behaves inconsistently. One day they seem warm and present, and the next they appear distant or uncertain. From the outside, this behavior can seem confusing, but internally they are trying to reconcile what they feel with what they believe they should feel. This is why silence should not always be mistaken for indifference. Some of the deepest emotional decisions are made without words. A person may withdraw, not because they have stopped caring, but because the intensity of their emotions forces them to reflect. They begin questioning old beliefs, examining past wounds, and wondering whether they are ready to embrace a future that feels both exciting and unfamiliar. The decision is forming quietly, away from the eyes of others. At the same time, this process begins changing their perception. They no longer see the other person as just another individual in their life. Instead, they start recognizing qualities that resonate with unmet emotional needs, hidden aspirations, or forgotten parts of themselves. They may admire strengths they once overlooked, or feel unexpectedly comforted by simple conversations. The connection gradually becomes symbolic, representing not only another person, but also the possibility of growth, healing, and a more authentic life. The remarkable thing about this silent decision is that it cannot be forced from the outside. No amount of persuasion, pressure, or manipulation can create it. It emerges naturally when the unconscious recognizes a connection that feels psychologically meaningful. That is why genuine emotional bonds often develop at their own pace, beyond logic or expectation. By the time someone finally speaks their truth, the real decision was often made long ago, in the quiet depths of the mind, where the most powerful transformations always begin. One of the greatest paradoxes of human psychology is that people often discover the true value of someone only after that person is no longer constantly present. While a connection exists every day, the mind easily adapts to it, treating it as something familiar. But when distance appears, whether through silence, physical separation, or simply a change in routine, the unconscious is suddenly forced to confront what has been missing all along. Absence creates a space that cannot easily be filled, and within that space, hidden emotions begin to surface. At first, the person may try to ignore these feelings. They distract themselves with work, friends, hobbies, or new experiences, believing that time alone will quiet the growing sense of emptiness. Yet the unconscious has its own way of demanding attention. Thoughts of the other person begin to appear unexpectedly. A familiar place, a passing conversation, or a random song can awaken memories that seemed forgotten. What they believed they had moved beyond quietly returns, often with even greater intensity. This is because the mind does not simply remember people, it remembers the emotional meaning attached to them. If someone brought a sense of peace, understanding, inspiration, or emotional safety, their tears becomes more than the loss of a person. It becomes the absence of a psychological experience. The unconscious recognizes that something valuable is missing, even if the conscious mind continues to deny it. Distance also removes many of the distractions that once concealed genuine feelings. During constant interaction, attention is often divided by everyday conversations, misunderstandings, and ordinary routines. But when that interaction disappears, only the emotional essence of the connection remains. The person begins reflecting not on small disagreements or imperfections, but on how deeply they felt understood, accepted, or transformed by the relationship. Memory becomes selective, highlighting moments that carried real emotional weight. This period of separation often creates an internal struggle. Pride may insist that reaching out would appear weak. Fear whispers that vulnerability could lead to rejection. Old emotional wounds encourage self-protection instead of openness. Yet beneath these defenses, longing continues to grow. The more they try to suppress it, the more persistent it becomes. Because unresolved emotions rarely disappear, they simply seek another path into awareness. There is another subtle transformation taking place as well. The image they once held of the other person begins to deepen. Qualities that seemed ordinary now appear extraordinary. Conversations that once felt routine are remembered with unexpected warmth. Even flaws become part of a larger picture that feels authentic rather than imperfect. The unconscious starts weaving these memories into a meaningful narrative, revealing that the connection was never as ordinary as they once believed. This is why absence can become more powerful than presence. It strips away illusion, exposes hidden attachment, and forces the psyche to face what it truly values. By removing constant external contact, distance allows the inner world to speak more clearly, and when that inner voice grows impossible to silence, the person begins to realize that what they have been searching for elsewhere may have been quietly living in their heart all along. Once hidden feelings become too powerful to ignore, the unconscious begins expressing itself in ways that often seem mysterious. It communicates through symbols rather than direct statements, drawing attention to experiences that feel unusually meaningful. Many people dismiss these moments as coincidence, yet they often leave a lasting emotional impression because they touch something deeper than ordinary thought. The mind naturally searches for patterns, but when a connection has become psychologically significant, those patterns begin carrying emotional weight that is difficult to explain. A person may suddenly find themselves thinking about someone at unexpected times, even during the busiest parts of the day. They are not intentionally trying to remember them, yet the image appears effortlessly. Sometimes a particular song begins playing repeatedly in different places, reminding them of a shared memory. A familiar name appears in conversations, books, or social media more often than usual. They may even dream about the person in vivid detail, waking with emotions that feel surprisingly real. Whether these experiences are true synchronicities, or simply the unconscious directing attention toward what matters most, they reveal that the inner world is actively processing something important. Dreams are especially revealing because they bypass the logical mind. During sleep, the unconscious is free to speak through symbols, emotions, and stories. A person may dream of meeting someone after a long separation, traveling together, or facing obstacles before finally reconnecting. These dreams are rarely literal predictions. Instead, they reflect an inner psychological journey showing unresolved emotions, hidden desires, or the gradual integration of feelings that have not yet been fully accepted in waking life. The unconscious also has a remarkable way of turning ordinary events into emotional tramsays, reminders. A place once visited together suddenly feels different. A certain scent instantly brings back forgotten memories. A passing stranger with a similar smile or voice triggers unexpected emotions. These experiences remind us that memory is deeply connected to feeling. The mind stores not only facts but also emotional significance. And when someone has touched us profoundly, even small details can awaken the entire emotional landscape connected to them. As these signs accumulate, many people begin questioning whether they are imagining everything. The conscious mind seeks logical explanations, while the deeper psyche continues presenting experiences that refuse to be ignored. This inner tension often marks a period of psychological awakening. The person is no longer able to dismiss the connection as temporary or insignificant, because it continues appearing in subtle yet persistent ways. What makes these experiences so powerful is not the events themselves, but the transformation they produce. They encourage reflection, soften emotional defenses, and invite honesty. Instead of running from their feelings, the individual gradually becomes curious about them. They begin asking why one particular person continues occupying their thoughts, while so many others fade away. That question alone can open the door to profound self-discovery. The unconscious is always moving toward wholeness. It continually guides attention toward unresolved emotions, meaningful relationships, and opportunities for inner growth. These recurring signs are not necessarily messages from the outside world, but reflections from within, revealing what the deepest parts of the psyche already know. When someone repeatedly appears in the landscape of the mind, it is often because the heart has recognized a truth that the conscious self is only beginning to understand. One of the greatest misunderstandings about deep relationships is the belief that love alone is enough to bring two people together. While strong feelings may create the desire for connection, lasting unity requires something far more demanding: inner transformation. Before two lives can truly move forward together, each person is often confronted with the parts of themselves they have avoided for years. The unconscious does not seek comfort alone. It seeks wholeness. And wholeness can only emerge when hidden fears, unresolved wounds, and outdated beliefs are brought into awareness. This is why meaningful relationships often seem delayed. From the outside, the timing may feel frustrating or even unfair. There may be long periods of silence, uncertainty, or emotional distance. Yet beneath the surface, important psychological work is taking place. Each individual is being challenged to outgrow old patterns that would eventually damage the connection if left unchanged. What appears to be a setback is often preparation for something more stable and authentic. For one person, this transformation may involve learning to trust after years of disappointment. They may have built emotional walls so high that allowing someone close feels dangerous. Every expression of affection awakens memories of betrayal or rejection, causing them to retreat, even when they genuinely care. The conflict is not between love and indifference, but between hope and fear. Until they confront those old wounds, they cannot fully receive the connection they secretly long for. For the other person, the lesson may be entirely different. They may need to discover their own worth instead of seeking constant reassurance from others. They may learn that genuine love cannot survive if it is driven by desperation, insecurity, or the fear of being abandoned. Instead of chasing approval, they begin building a stronger relationship with themselves. As confidence grows, they stop trying to force outcomes and start allowing relationships to develop naturally. During this period, both individuals are unknowingly reshaping their identities. Old habits begin losing their influence. Emotional reactions become calmer. Past mistakes are viewed with greater understanding rather than shame. They become more patient, more honest, and more willing to accept both their strengths and imperfections. These changes are often slow, almost invisible from day to day, but over time they create an entirely different foundation for the relationship. Transformation also changes how people see one another. Instead of expecting someone else to complete their life, They begin appreciating the other person as a companion rather than a solution. The relationship shifts from dependency to partnership. Each person brings greater emotional maturity, allowing trust to replace fear and understanding to replace constant conflict. They no longer seek perfection because they recognize that authenticity creates far deeper intimacy than flawless appearances ever could. Perhaps the most important change is that both individuals become more aligned with their true selves. They stop pretending to be who they think others expect them to be. Masks begin to fall away, revealing a quieter confidence rooted in self-acceptance. Only then can the connection grow, without being weighed down by hidden fears or unrealistic expectations. The journey toward another person ultimately becomes a journey back to oneself, and it is through that inner transformation that the possibility of a lasting and meaningful bond finally becomes real. There comes a moment in every deeply meaningful connection when uncertainty can no longer survive. For weeks, months, or even years, the mind may hesitate, question, and search for reasons to delay what the heart already knows. But eventually, something changes. The inner conflict that once created confusion begins to dissolve. The person stops fighting their own emotions and finally accepts what has been quietly growing within them all along. This is the final decision, not one made in a burst of emotion, but one shaped through reflection, struggle, and profound psychological change. This decision rarely arrives with dramatic announcements or grand gestures. Instead, it appears as a quiet sense of certainty. The constant need to analyze every feeling begins to fade. Doubts lose their power because they are no longer supported by fear. The person realizes that running from the connection has only led them back to the same emotional truth. What they tried to ignore has remained present through every distraction, every denial, and every attempt to move on. One of the clearest signs of this transformation is consistency. Someone who was once uncertain begins acting with greater clarity. Their words and actions gradually become aligned. They no longer send mixed signals or hide behind emotional distance. Instead of being controlled by fear of rejection or vulnerability, they become willing to express themselves honestly. This does not mean they suddenly become perfect, but it does mean they stop allowing fear to make their decisions. At the same time, their priorities begin to shift. Things that once seemed incredibly important, status, appearances, or the opinions of others, lose much of their influence. What matters now is authenticity. They begin valuing emotional peace over temporary excitement, and genuine connection over superficial attraction. This change reflects a deeper psychological maturity. The unconscious has completed much of its work, allowing the conscious mind to embrace what it once resisted. Another remarkable change is the disappearance of the need to control every outcome. Earlier, they may have tried to predict the future, protect themselves from disappointment, or force situations to unfold according to their expectations. Now they understand that meaningful relationships cannot be built on control. Trust gradually replaces anxiety. They become more present, more patient, and more open to allowing the relationship to develop naturally, rather than trying to manage every detail. This final choice is also a decision about identity. The person is no longer choosing only another individual. They are choosing the kind of life they wish to live. They recognize that every meaningful relationship